Welcome to the Latino podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities with legal, political, and community leaders and visionaries. Let's get started.
Hey, it's Sean Gomez. Welcome to another episode of the Latino podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities. We talk to leading lawyers, judges, community leaders, politicians, community activists about this important intersection of law in our community. Today's podcast, as always, is brought to you by your sponsor, Gomez Trial Attorneys. Gomez Trial Attorneys is a consumer rights law firm practicing personal injury, employment litigation, products liability, and mass torts. We provide the very highest level of legal representation to our clients in both the English and Spanish languages. Today we have a very special guest, one of the leading Latino consumer rights law lawyers in California, David Arreguin, who really has some very unique and insightful experiences and knowledge about the things that we're going to be talking about. And so, he is a leading consumer rights law lawyer. He is a real, I think, savvy marketer. You'll often see him, especially in Mexico-based Spanish language media, getting out there, showing up, sharing his expertise and knowledge. He's a leader within the consumer attorneys, community, and is just a great guy with a good story that I think you'll enjoy hearing. And so, David, thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you, John, first of all, for the invitation and for getting my last name right. You got to roll your R's. You know how to roll your R's. So again, my name's David Arreguin. I'm thankful for being here, and I'm happy to share my story.
The cool thing about David is he's really lived a lot on both sides of our border here. Grew up, was educated in Tijuana, came up here for college, practices law down up here. And so when you're down there, you said, I got your name right. Do they call you David or David?
You know what? It's been changing a little bit in the last few years, because a lot of family actually now call me David, but with like a D-E-I-V-I-D.
Okay,
right?
There you go.
So sort of like a mix. And some people call me David. Yes.
All right. So tell us, the first kind of question I'd like to ask our guest is, tell us about your childhood, your background, how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, no, of course. And I mean, right before the podcast, I think we were getting a little into it. But ultimately, I grew up in Tijuana. I was born in San Diego. And growing up in Tijuana, I went to this great school. My parents...
What's the name of that school?
It's called Instituto Mexico. And that's a big shout out for them, because ultimately they did forge the path of where I'm at today, as to how strict the school was, how good the professors were. And more than anything, I just want to thank my parents for, doing the effort of sending me to this great private school. And also for, actually getting me some private lessons at home, which at that point I hated. And now I'm just so thankful for.
And the private lessons were in the English language, right?
They were in the English language. Again, as I was sharing just before the podcast, after a full day of school, after a full day of basketball, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would have 2 hours of English lessons at home, adding to my, coursework. Again, at one point, I would actually hide somewhere in the house just to avoid these classes. My mom would find me and actually drag me into the dining room to make sure that I took those lessons.
Now, you told me earlier that your dad is a dentist, your mom is a nurse.
Correct, yes.
And so did they, we hear from some parents, hey, we want you to be this, like a doctor or a lawyer. Did they have plans for you?
They actually never did. I always knew that I was going to go to college in the U.S., so that was the plan. My dad never pushed me as a dentist to be a dentist. But at one point in my first year of college, I was leaning between either law or medical school or dental school. And then at one point, I realized that I did not want to study something with biology, which interestingly now, doing personal injury, I do study that, right? But at that point, I did not get a push from my dad or my mom to be anything but what I wanted to be.
Well, they just wanted you to do well and give you the opportunities to succeed, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Like how good, like you were at this school down in Tijuana, and I know a lot of your colleagues ended up here doing what you're doing, being lawyers.
Yeah, correct. So it's been interesting because we get together sometimes at, the events for like San Diego La Raza lawyers. Last one that we had, we were happy enough to actually take a photo. It was 4 or 5 of us that went to the same school, which is, grammar school, middle school, high school, ended up in the U.S. and actually going to law school here. And we are now practicing attorneys.
Amazing. Was there like one of you that started down that path first and you're like, and they said, hey guys, let's all do this, or how'd that happen?
I think for that, so the funny thing is 2 of them are like the best friends of my brother, who's younger than me.
Okay.
One of them, she became an attorney before I did. But my path to law school started when I was in college. So I think I was, at least from the people that I know, the first one that wanted to be a lawyer. And then I do have a cousin here in San Diego who is an attorney at Procopio. And he did follow my path after becoming an engineer first. And we actually lived together at one point when I was in college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so you said, hey, I always knew that I wanted to come up here to go to college. Where did that come from?
So a lot of it, I think, had to do with my parents. That was the plan for them, for us. It's I'm the oldest of 3 children. All of us actually went to college in the U.S., San Diego and Irvine. My 2 brothers are engineers. I did not go that path. I did like math. I just, I didn't see it for myself. But I think afterwards, after my parents were telling me, you're going to go to the U.S. for college, that was always my plan. My plan was never to go to college in Mexico. And one of the other things that I had discussed with my dad, because he wanted to be a lawyer when he was young, but he wanted to be a lawyer in Mexico. When he realized that being a lawyer in Mexico is not the same as being a lawyer in the U.S. and being in the courts and actually going to trial, that's when he decided to go to dental school.
Oh, I got you. And so, talk to us because some of our listeners may not know or recognize or appreciate. Tell us about this community that is Tijuana and San Diego, and how much back and forth there is, how close the communities are, and talk about the need up here for Baja residents for legal services on this side of the border.
No, of course. So it is a very unique culture. I actually did a lot of papers on this in college because they call it a third culture, right? You have the people from Tijuana, they have the people from San Diego, and then you have the people who are in between, people who commute either for high school, for college. And like myself, for example, I would actually attend college, let's say Monday through Thursday. On Thursdays, sometimes I would actually just drive back to Tijuana, hang out with my friends, do some other things. And then I was actually commuting on the weekends to work at either retail or restaurants while I was in college. So it is a struggle to actually cross the border. Fortunately, I've always had Sentry, which is, a quicker pass. But still with that, it's more of a mental challenge to actually cross the border. It's not so much the waiting time. One of my focus, so again, I am a personal injury lawyer, and I also focus a lot on vehicle defects and limit law. It's, again, consumer protection, right? One of my niche practices is focusing on people who are this third culture, people who are border crossers, people who either commute, live in TJ, Rosarito, Ensenada. And ultimately, my goal is to educate these people about what their rights in the U.S. are. Being from Tijuana, you grow up with all these, I call them legal myths, right? Mm. We hear this from our grandparents. We hear this from our parents. And you realize that you grew up with that idea once you actually become more accustomed to the laws in the U.S. and then also knowledgeable about the laws, especially after law school and practicing, you realize that you have a duty to actually communicate this information to these people that you either know or they know other people that might be in problems, right? A lot of people, they don't want to, they always say this. I don't want to get in trouble by bringing a claim. And I always explain, it's not getting in trouble. It's actually fighting for your rights. The system exists for that same reason. You just got to make your voice heard.
Right.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that I'm trying to do more, especially with Instagram and, being on TV and the news, bringing news and try to get rid of this legal myths. So that's one of my goals. We were talking about goals before the podcast again. This is one of my goals for the next couple of years, to actually get that information out there for this people who are on both sides of the border.
These legal myths. So one legal myth is, look, I don't want to get in trouble by bringing a claim. Are there any other ones that you hear a lot?
So a lot of them have to do with immigration, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, despite me being a U.S. citizen, I remember when I was little and crossing the border with my parents, once when we were in the car, they would actually shut us up and say, hey, you're not going to speak anything until we cross the border. And there was some sense of nervousness, right?
And you guys were all legit.
And we were all legit, but still, just crossing that border, it was it is a mental challenge, despite, having the paperwork. But still, and a lot of people, went through the same thing when I was younger, despite having the papers.
Yeah, sure. And so, in the year to come, you're going to get out there and educate, your community and your neighbors and folks. One way you're doing it, I've seen, is getting on some Tijuana TV and infomercials, that kind of thing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, correct. So we have good partnerships in San Diego and some of the TV stations in Mexico. And thankfully, I've been able to, give these legal news or just explain some legal matters in Spanish, which is very needed, especially in this area, right? And the good thing about these partnerships with these TV stations is they have a broad coverage. So the TV stations actually have coverage all the way to Oceanside and maybe all the way to Rosarito. So you're targeting all these people and you're making sure that this information that you're sharing with them is getting received. Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's very important. Just making law simple to them and explaining it. I don't have scripts. I just start talking about what I know, and I'm very casual about my conversation. No legalese. I just want to get the information out there.
I love it. And so, what about, you and, your colleagues from your high school? How about, the next generation? Any thought about encouraging, kids like you guys to kind of follow your path? Tell us about anything like that.
Yeah, of course. It doesn't have to be necessarily the legal path. Just as long as they, for example, myself, I started in community college. So the drop rate that I was seeing when I was in community college was pretty big for people from Tijuana. People would come here maybe for like 6 months, try it out, and then ultimately they would go back to Mexico for school. So if I can, inspire the next generation of Tijuana people, Mexican people coming to the U.S. for their studies, and make sure that, let's say, if they start at community college, that I can help them actually reach the college level so they can graduate and obtain their, 4-year or 5-year undergraduate degree. I mean, that's something that I can, that I can be proud of. I've been trying to do that with the people that I know, letting them know how to get there. But also, if I can inspire and guide people on how to get to law school, I think that's going to be even better. Again, law school, as you know, John, gives you a lot of tools. Gives you a lot of tools to understand government, gives you a lot of tools to understand politics, your civil rights, and then ultimately, if you want to be a trial attorney, you're dealing with anything with civil procedure, and then, being outspoken, being a good public speaker. If I can help people do that from, Tijuana, I'm more than happy to do that.
And so when you were seeing kids, come up here and then, wash out or go home early, like what are the reasons? What were some of the challenges you had, I guess, coming up here to go to school?
So I think one of the things is the system is very different. I think there's a lot of liberty. From what I understand, the college in Mexico, they sort of like give you the path. You already know the path. Here in the US, the college, you got to find your own path, right? You got to find your own classes. You got to register for your own classes and make sure that you're following a line of study. I think that was one of the challenges that people were facing. They were just spending too much time in community college and they were not able to transfer. I think talking to a good counselor, talking to some people that already went to college in the US, that's what I did. I started reaching out to maybe brothers of my friends who were in college here already. I remember one particular one, his name is Nemo Curiel. He was a brother of my good friend. He was already at Berkeley, I believe. And ultimately, he was the one that he would always get me on the phone and try to explain to me how the system worked. So one of the challenges is the system. The other is the commute. For a lot of people, it's very, very heavy. So what I would recommend is, getting together with a couple of people, 3, 4, and ultimately just renting like a little, dorm or like a little apartment. I'm going to get back to when I started college. I know I'm going to deviate from the topic, but when I started college, I was living in a house with 2 of my brothers and 4 cousins. One of those cousins, he's the attorney that I was referring to at Procopio. I was already in college, 2 cousins were in college, and the other ones were in high school, making sure that they were, getting their path right into college. Not community college, right into college. And that was one of the efforts that our parents also did for all of us. So they had us at a house, they rented the house. 2 moms would actually come in every other day to, cook for us.
Oh, wow.
And then attend to us. So that was a lot of dedication.
Yeah.
Because ultimately they were still living in Mexico. So again, that is commitment that I would see from my mom, for example. And she would always be there, especially for my younger brother who was still in high school.
That's amazing. They were really committed to, having you succeed up here.
Yes.
I love the moms coming up, and that would definitely make it a lot easier and a lot more palatable. And
yes, well, they still got to check out the kids, right? That looked like a little frat house.
Oh yeah.
In Chula Vista, it's called Shasta Street. So shout out to Shasta Street. It's right in front of the courthouse in Chula Vista.
Okay, very good.
And just a funny story on that, since there were a lot of kids there, it was 7 of us, right? They would actually have cops park outside the house because probably some of the neighbors would start calling in. It's like, hey, what's going on with this house? There's a lot of kids. But yeah, nothing wrong was going on. And we were just basically studying, going to school. And I'm thankful also to say that, again, from that house, 2 attorneys came out and ultimately 5 engineers.
Wow.
Yeah, so the moms did a great job.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, how common is it for, young kind of would-be professionals in Mexico to really, from an early age, say, look, I want to make my mark up here, that is in the United States, at least in terms of education. And then ultimately, it sounds like many of you, if not all of you, ended up working up here. How common is that? And, what would you say the explanation for that is?
So, it is common. Let's say just focusing on my high school, the last year of high school, that's when you start seeing who's going to end up here, who's going to go to schools in Monterrey, schools in Mexico City, schools in Guadalajara, great universities as well. A lot of my friends went there. But it's probably a small percentage. Again, taking into account the fact that a lot of people started here, but they ultimately went back. It is common, but I want to say maybe like 10, 15% of the people from my high school ended up in the U.S. And I think one of the reasons is, it also has to do with opportunity. I'm not saying that if you're not great in Mexico, you're not going to do great. But of course, there's more opportunity in the U.S. There's more opportunity for education. There's more opportunity for grants, scholarships. So there is more support for education. And just being so close to the border, it's very convenient. And the fact that your parents have actually contributed to this country since you were born, paying taxes, I think that's definitely something that you need to take up. Basically, you just got to take charge, and you just gotta make the best of it. But it is coming. It is coming.
What would you say? You really have your ear to the kind of third community, these cross-border, workers and citizens and folks that are coming back and forth a lot. What do you hear or feel about, fears, immigration-related fears, I'll say, with this new presidency? Have you seen that yet or felt that yet?
So, and perhaps you've also received some calls on this. Immediately after inauguration, I started getting a lot of calls, especially with the, birthright citizenship. Some people were even concerned the fact that they were born in this country and that it was going to be retroactive, right? So I had to start clearing some misconceptions. This was probably the most common questions that I would get. People who are already working here, people who are already professionals here, but they were still concerned about their citizenship being taken away. It was a good thing that they called, so at least they're not just, wondering what's going to happen. So I think with this, again, this is, we always say the land of opportunity. You do things right, you get things right, you have nothing to fear. But still, there were a lot of misconceptions being talked about immediately after, and I was getting a lot of calls on that.
And you're not an immigration lawyer, right?
I am not an immigration lawyer, but you got to know a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure.
This has to do a little bit with legal myths.
Right.
And a lot of people, especially after graduating law school and passing the bar, becoming an attorney, they were reaching out to me because they thought I was an immigration attorney. And one of the reasons were that I spoke Spanish, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I jumped on Instagram, why I jumped on Facebook. My community, my network knew I was a lawyer, but they didn't know what kind of lawyer I was. So I started getting out there and letting people know that I was a personal injury lawyer, that I was a limited law lawyer, vehicle defects, product defects. And thankfully now, and thanks to Instagram and social media, people know what I do. So I get the right referrals so that I can help these people that are in need. And I want to thank a lot of my clients because a lot of my clients are these either border crossers or this third culture that, either lives here, lives in Mexico, but still their rights still need to be protected as consumers.
And so it sounds like a lot of your clients are learning about you through social media, and then maybe with these news appearances as well. Has that been helpful for you?
It has definitely been helpful. I was a non-Instagram user before I started posting about what I did. When I started doing it, I had 0 photos on my Instagram, no profile picture, right? I started this at the end of 2022 with a lot of help from my firm, Bankruptcy Law Firm, and the marketing team there. They started getting me more accustomed to be uploading and be active on Instagram. And then it becomes basically like your job to be posting. You cannot depend just on people posting for you. Just start posting things that are relevant. What I started doing is started posting about some of our settlements, some of our clients' histories. Also, these news appearances have been helping a lot. People still send me some photos when they see me like at a taco shop on TV, and they're good friends that are sending me these photos. So the good thing is that people are seeing me out there, and it's becoming like a little snowball, right? Because little by little, I've been getting more and more and more calls and referral people. But I think, and one thing that you got to be careful with is once you start getting all these clients, you want to make sure that you're giving a good service. because ultimately it's not about that client that you're helping. It's also about the next client that you're helping. So it's very important that the clients are happy, that you're looking out for them. Because ultimately it's not, this business is not just that client. It's also getting additional clients that were happy with how you treated them and how you treated the case so that you can this additional referral. Yeah.
For sure. And so, I'm always curious because I spend a lot of time in what I'll call business development, marketing. At the same time, I try to be a real good lawyer for my clients, try to remain very active in that space. In terms of percentage of time, like how would you say right now your percentage committed to marketing versus percentage committed to lawyering is?
Okay. So that is a hard one. And the reason is because at the office, I handle my personal injury cases, and I handle exclusively the limit law practice that I opened when I came back to bankruptcy law firm. So you ultimately got to focus on your cases, but social media and promoting, it's a big percentage. Right now, I probably spend maybe 20, 25%, 30% on marketing on Instagram, social media. But that also takes time on weekends, right? When you're also working or you're walking out the park, you're still trying to think about things that you can do.
Sure.
So it is a big percentage. And this, we're doing this podcast, right? I was posting some other items on my way here as well. So that takes time. And then ultimately I'll go back to the office and still grind it until like 7, 8 p.m. because I got
do the
work
work
to do. Yeah,
the work's waiting for you.
And hopefully I can still get a little, gym time at the end of the day. And I want to thank my wife because she's very patient because I'm out of the house for most of the day. And she was very supportive. We've been married for 10 years. I'm going to get into this story because she was very supportive during law school. She was, we got married years before law school, and she stood by me as I went through law school, long days, sometimes interning here in downtown at, the district attorney's office or a federal judge. So I would leave home like around 6 a.m. and I wouldn't come back until 11:30 p.m. because I went to school. So
wow.
Right now with the whole percentage and working on cases and Instagram, again, it's a big percentage of social media, Instagram marketing, and then you still have, your duties towards your clients. So the work still needs to get done.
And so you said you met her, you got married before law school?
Yes. Yeah. So when I graduated college in 2011.
Okay.
So in 2011, I had a little of a break from school because I didn't start law school until 6 years after. I was thankful to land a job after college at my current law firm, and I was focusing on the marketing and the business development. That's what I started getting my knowledge on the legal marketing. So ultimately, that helped a lot because it basically paved my way of being now. And looking back at it, it helped a lot because I was already joining all these organizations in San Diego, doing the networking, becoming very confident and talking to people that I didn't know, especially in English. Again, coming from Mexico, having all that grammar almost perfect was great, but I wasn't sufficiently fluent in English to have a real conversation, right? So that was something that I had to hone on, that I had to practice, and the whole Nike thing, just do it, always stuck with me because ultimately you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And that's my thought every time I would go to a networking event. It's like, well, you know what? Just do it.
Yeah.
Just talk to people. I got very used to it, and then I got very good at it, I believe. And ultimately, it just came out. So yeah, but getting back to the topic, I think it's been a very interesting. I would say a very interesting trip.
So how'd you meet your wife?
So I met my wife. I was a year out of college. I was spending some time in Guadalajara. A lot of friends went to college there. They were still in college. And I actually met her out while partying. My parents always
That's
said,
how you always meet the good ones.
Yeah, no, exactly. So my parents
Especially in Guadalajara.
yes. So my parents always said the opposite, right?
Oh.
You're never gonna meet anyone like partying. And I think my in-laws said the same thing to my wife. But thankfully, that was an effort. It was very persistence payoff, because initially she didn't want to go out with me because she knew I was not from there. But ultimately, I was in between jobs. I was 23 or 24 when I met her. So ultimately, I was able to actually stay in Guadalajara for like 9 months.
Oh, wow.
And we dated for that time. And then after maybe a year and a half, we actually got married in Guadalajara.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So it's a great story. Yeah.
And so then, you're talking, are you telling her, hey, my plans are to become a big lawyer in the United States? And I mean, how did that all, come about?
Yeah. So back then, I believe I had already mentioned that I wanted to be a lawyer at one point. But back then, I mean, I was basically living out of savings. I started working when I was 17. I was in 10th grade in high school in Tijuana, and I was working weekends in Las Americas at Aeropostale, a very popular brand back then. So I was working weekends. I started saving some money all through high school, all through college. So ultimately, I had some money. But after 9 months, without working, that money started to, go out the door. So we started having these, real adult conversations of, okay, are we going to get married at one point? Because that's the whole idea. And ultimately, we started planning for that. But I did tell her that, yes, I wanted to be a lawyer.
And so, at some point you have discussions, I imagine, hey, would you be willing to move to the United States with me, right?
Yeah, so that was a real conversation. That conversation happened many, many times. So my wife comes from a very good family in Guadalajara, very smart people family, business-minded. So she was all set up, right? She was very comfortable. She had good friends. All of her family is there. She did not have any friends here or any family.
Wow.
So ultimately, she moved for me. And that conversation happened. It was a difficult conversation. I think she just, did the jump. Maybe after a year or two, she was, maybe not as convinced as initially, but now she's very happy here. She has tons of friends, very good community that she's created. And yeah, we're living a good life.
Yeah, except like you're working all the time. Does she work?
She does not work.
Oh,
she does not work.
All right.
She's actually, she takes care of our little Shih Tzu Donna. And since the news are already out, I'm actually going to have a baby boy in August.
Oh, amazing. Congratulations.
No, thank you. We just learned about this, the fact that, we're going to have a boy last Thursday.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So
the news is out. So
yes.
Breaking news right here on the Latino podcast, August, first child, a boy.
Yes.
So that's super exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah. No, thank you. So hopefully, the next generation of Arreguin lawyers.
Definitely, man.
I'm not going to push it, but maybe he'll be leaning towards the whole lawyering.
Yeah. It's funny. I have 3 older kids right now. I have a 17-year-old and 2 15-year-olds. And I've never kind of pushed or suggested law. And until very recently, every year they'd be like, oh, I want to be, at school. And they would never say lawyer. One time my daughter said trial lawyer when she was like 3rd grade. But other than that, never. But now...
Were you stoked when she said that?
I was very excited. Yeah, because she put trial lawyer too.
Okay.
So, that's what we are. Me and my guests are trial lawyers. So, yeah, that was very exciting. But ever since then, nothing. They wanted to be politicians, veterinarians, broadcasters, this, that, the other. But I'll tell you now that they're a little bit older. I think the best thing we can do for our kids is just sort of live, in leadership. And they look at me and what I do and the impact that I'm able to make. And it feels like all 3 of them now are leaning in that direction.
Good.
So that's pretty cool. And I'm sure, your boy, as he grows up, will look to the work that you're doing with a whole lot of, pride and inspiration. And, yeah, we could, we'll be looking for that kid to knock it down just like Pops.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, man, like, so I'll tell you, I think, having children certainly made me a much better lawyer, certainly more motivated. And, I think, my tendency was just to work and work and work and work too. But, the cool thing about kids is they balance you out a little bit.
Of course.
And you tend to get as much done in a shorter amount of time. And so exciting times for you guys to come. Congratulations again.
Oh, thank you. And I mean, we're already having these conversations, right? Because I still go to the gym after work.
Yeah.
I get there. I mean, I get home late, and my wife now is telling me, "Is like, so how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
You gotta see your kid, right?
Yeah.
So maybe waking up earlier, going to the gym in the morning or something like that.
Yeah.
Families, it's probably the most important thing. So
100%.
definitely gotta make the time.
So tell us about like health and, self-care, like things you like to do to kind of take care of you today.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, growing up, I was a very active kid. We had a basketball court in our backyard, and I would always have my friends over, and we were always playing basketball. That's the only thing we did. I didn't really play a lot of video games, but ultimately it was all about sports. Weekends, it was dirt biking with my dad and my brothers. So that's the only thing I did, and mountain biking. As I grew older and started college, I still continued that, trait, going to the gym, running, mountain biking, dirt biking still. I actually sold my dirt bike right before I got married because I paid my honeymoon.
Okay, there you go.
With the dirt bike.
Where'd you go?
So I ended up going to the Riviera Maya. So I did
nice.
Bacalar, which is, the Lagoon of Seven Colors. So relaxing. I recommend it. And then we did Holbox, which is a little island right next to it.
Oh, very nice. All right.
Yeah. So, I think when my health started declining was when I started law school. I was so focused on, I was working part-time. I was going to school, and I was so focused on my studies that I put my health out the door, basically. I would sit for long periods of times, not take walks, and it started affecting my health. The first thing that I started noticing, I started having a lot of low back problems. I was still 28 when this happened. And then I started having a lot of issues with like my legs, leg pain, because I was working in the morning and then I was having all these issues. But a little afterwards, finishing law school, I realized that I just needed to, get back to health, which is the most important thing, along with family. And ultimately, what I started doing is, started practicing sports again. Started playing basketball again consistently. Started going to the gym 2 or 3 times a week. I started playing a lot of tennis starting 2020. That became a passion of mine right after basketball. And lately, I've been doing a lot of rock climbing. So I've been doing that for the last 6 months, and it's paying out. It's incredible. It takes my mind out of work because ultimately it's still problem solving, but it is a lot of strength, coordination, and health-wise, it's been helping me a lot.
Don't be doing that like that movie, Free, whatever. The guy climbs the front of with no ropes or anything.
Is that Cliffhanger?
No, I forget what it's called, man. But it's I'll get it for you. But it's a movie you got to watch.
Okay.
Because it's very high anxiety, high tension, and it's this guy. He's a free climber, I think is what they call it, and he takes all these challenging climbs with like no equipment.
Okay.
Just climbs. And so then one time he does like the face of this crazy, I can't remember where it is, but it's a very high anxiety. I mean, obviously, you're not doing that. I'm kind of joking around, but like his whole crew is like scared he's going to die. And it's like pretty, but like that climbing, like for that upper body strength and like the mental, like the planning.
It's very mental because a lot of times, and I usually climb with a buddy of mine, we always say that sometimes when we let go, it's because we were just mentally weak. So
Yeah.
You get tired.
Right, sure.
And then a lot of times you just got to push through.
Yeah.
So I started appreciating that sport a lot, along with tennis. So again, always being a basketball player, you sort of delegate your stress to your other team members. With tennis, it was a little bit different. The first tournament that I entered, it was down at Campestre in Tijuana. And it was very interesting that being in a tournament and not being able to delegate stress was very different. Because on my level of tennis, I mean, I'm not a professional. It's not so much how good the other player is, but basically what you're doing on your end to make sure that the ball crosses the net. So it's very mentally challenging. And at that tournament, I reached semifinals.
Wow.
And I did lose the semifinals because my legs just gave out. But it wasn't because I mentally gave up. I think you just gotta, bring yourself back, get your composure, and keep going at it and try to do the best that you can.
Super cool. Yeah, I feel like if we don't pay attention to our health, certainly our families, this thing called law can chew you up and spit you out pretty fast. And if we take care of ourselves, then it can be a real long and fulfilling, profession. So, I always look at it as a marathon rather than a sprint.
Correct. Yes, definitely.
And so I know that you are in your first term or first year as being on the board of directors of the Consumer Attorneys of San Diego, which is our trial lawyers organization here in San Diego. Kind of tell us about how you became interested in that and kind of your hopes for your involvement in that.
No, of course. So again, when I was doing marketing and business development for my firm, I was already involved with Consumer Attorneys of San Diego, which I believe is a great organization. It provides a lot of opportunities, a lot of connections to talk to other trial attorneys. Starting from a young age at CASD, I think I started talking to all these people who inspired me to want to be a trial lawyer. Now that I grew up and basically became a lawyer and I can actually get back, I was fortunate to be brought on board by Sarah Havens. Also shout out to her. She's a current president of CASD. She has a lot of ideas. I was fortunate enough to be voted into the Consumer Attorneys as a board member, and I'm happy to contribute as much as I can with communications, with getting outreach for Consumer Attorneys of San Diego to be out in the community, to actually people know about them so that they know what the good work that we do.
And so, what about getting that message, or addressing these myths you talked about, through your platform with Consumer Attorneys of San Diego? Like we see in California, an increasingly Hispanic, Latino, Spanish-speaking population. How important is it to have, bilingual, bicultural leaders in trial lawyer organizations like that?
I think it helps a lot. And both Consumer Attorneys of California and the Consumer Attorneys of San Diego, I think they're doing a great job collaborating more with, affinity organizations, especially minority organizations. So that's definitely a goal that we have going on. It's going to be very important. It's very exciting. And ultimately, I'm looking forward to what we can do to actually, bring these good goals to our community.
Yeah, amen. And so, I asked about an allocation of time between marketing and law. What about, and I'm just curious because, I always spend time thinking about, what's the best use of my time? For you, ideally, or if you had to say, okay, I have 100% of my time, devoted to business development, networking, marketing. And I say, okay, what percentage of that is going to be dedicated to basically trial lawyer stuff? We can go to these conferences, we can be on these boards, we can do these meetings and educational things. So that's trial lawyer stuff. And then we're going to say community stuff. And by that, for you, I mean, Spanish language, Tijuana, cross-border Mexican, Latino, communities and organizations. And so if you were like cutting up your time, and I know this can change as you go forward, but like right now, like what are your thoughts on kind of like a smart allocation?
So, I mean, just the fact that I'm more on the newer side of being a lawyer. And I mean, I can't say that I've honed my trial lawyer skills. Right now, I have 2 trials under my belt and 1 trial before I became a lawyer when I was with the district attorney's office. I want to say that I want to focus a lot on, being a trial lawyer, honing my evidence, my civil procedure while in court, while being on my feet. So right now,
you feel like you got the other part is kind of more natural.
That's
your life.
So the other part is very natural, the whole business development, marketing. Yeah. But in that ideal world, and let's say I'm already a great trial lawyer, I would probably split it like 50-50 because both are my passion, right? Being a lawyer and being a business development developer focusing on marketing. So ideally, it would be 50-50. But I turn to you and I ask you, what's your perfect allocation for that?
Well, like I'm at a different stage in my career. And so, for me, I find more value today in community-based stuff, I do stuff with La Raza lawyers and some other, law organizations. I feel like I'm very active with something called Shades of Mass, which is a national movement to increase diversity in law and particularly, high stakes litigation. So I do that with Ben Crump and some, Black lawyers and Latino lawyers. I feel like, to me right now, that part of law is most exciting to me and most attractive to me in terms of my spending of time. And just getting out in the community, we obviously have, I'll say a larger law firm here that it's important that we make community impact. And so, but then again, I've tried, close to 100 cases, like I kind of have that, like you're coming the other way, like I kind of have that part down to a degree. You can never stop learning, of course. There's always great lawyers and teachers out there, but for me, like I would, maybe it's 75-25, I'll say.
Okay.
Is my current allocation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good mix. And I do see you doing good stuff and, being out in the community, doing a lot of marketing. And I mean, we're doing a podcast, right?
Yeah, exactly right, man.
Staying up with technology and the young people.
Exactly. And so, what advice would you have for younger Latinos? We do these events here. We'll have kids, first generation kids, they call themselves, that are in college, want to go to law school. Sometimes we'll have kids that are from the other side of the border that want to go to law school or, become professionals here. What advice would you give, that group?
I think the first thing that I would tell them is to reach out to lawyers. When I was younger, I was sort of like afraid of reaching out to some people, reaching out to some lawyers. So I would just say start reaching out to people, even if you don't know them. Send them emails, call their office if you can, so that you can, hopefully talk to them. I'll tell you a little story on that, and you're actually in that story. Because in college, I was a valet parker. I was valet parking at Stephanie Towers, the university club. And I remember you from back then. Because we would actually park their car.
Good thing it was over there instead of some other places I parked mine.
Yeah, so I remember that you would actually talk to me along with some of the other lawyers at Stephanie Towers. So just talking to people like you and just telling me a little advice in the few minutes that you were waiting for your car, I think it was very helpful to me. So again, if people can reach out to lawyers or people who know lawyers or people who can connect them to lawyers so they can get them on the right path to get there, right? We had a lot of walkers in our office, and I always invite them to my office. I always talk about sometimes non-work stuff at work, but mainly about their goals. How can I connect and how can I get them into organizations? So just doing that, I think is great. What I also did in college and what I can tell people is if your college has like a law fraternity or any law organization, join it, because that'll start getting you in the right way to becoming a lawyer.
Yeah, those organizations are super active. I'm actually going to speak at one later this month at USD, their pre-law deal, because we had an event here and some of those kids came over. So I agree. And one thing you just said, which, I think is good for all of us to remember, is that, you remembered me and somehow figured out who I was. And, we had some brief interaction. And so when we're out in the community, a lot more people know who we are than we think know who we are. And it's important, obviously to, try to be ambassadors of what we do and, how we want people to think of lawyers when we're out there interacting with whoever. But I'm glad, man, I was, hopefully I tipped okay too. And, all those things.
Yeah, that was good advice. And then I want to take you to another story, because since, we know each other for a little while now. I remember you invited me to one of your holiday parties, like 2016, 2015. And something that stuck with me is the fact that you were at the entrance actually receiving people, and you were actually pouring the wine.
Oh, wow.
So, to me, that was a very special touch. And once I ended up like that, I think I'm going to replicate that.
Oh, I love it, man.
That just stuck with me.
Oh, super cool. Yeah, I wasn't washing the feet, but at least I was pouring the wine.
Yeah.
So, I know you're having a son, your first son in August, but, obviously that's going to be the highlight of the year. But otherwise, as you look forward to the year to come, what are you most excited about in your life?
So a lot of it has to do professionally. Maybe it just shouldn't be professionally, but I'm excited to increase my network. Just all the collaboration that I do with some other businesses and partnerships and events. I am very excited for that. I am very excited with the things that are to come with consumer attorneys and how that's going to be in my year, the coming years. But also, just spending more time with family, and the fact that I'm going to have to put that time to actually spend time with my wife, my new kid, my little puppy, my parents. I think that's the most exciting for me. And then just making sure that I can, get them on the right way.
Awesome. I love it. And so, to conclude, one question I like to ask is, and I stole this from a podcast that I talked to you about earlier, but if you had the ability to kind of write in the sky some words of advice or inspiration or motivation for all eternity to come, and so we could look up there and be inspired and motivated, what would you write up there for all of us to look at?
I mean, it might sound like a cliche, but I know I mentioned Nike, and to me, that just do it is just something that, stuck with me. Because most of the stuff that I do, they really make me feel uncomfortable. And what I keep doing is I keep doing things that make me uncomfortable until they don't. So I just say to people, just do it. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, as long as they're good things, just do it, be uncomfortable, and just get things done. Time will pass.
I love it, man. I totally agree, man. You just jump in, take a chance, just do it. I'm grateful that I'm wearing appropriate shoes for your Just Do It message today. I have my Jordans on.
Those are nice.
Yeah, thank you.
And growing up, I always wore Jordans because I was a basketball.
Because you were hooping, just
Yes.
like Ray here. Ray's a hoopster too. We got two hoopsters in the house. I played basketball through high school as a point guard, and so I understand that as well.
I should have kept those shoes. Now they are very valuable.
I know, man, you messed up. But the deal is, my kids, my 16-year-old's a shoe guy, and what I've learned is you don't wear the shoes. You buy the shoes and you don't wear them, or they wear them. They never get them scuffed. I don't know what he does to keep them all perfect. You were wearing yours. You were
I
playing.
was, yeah.
Oh,
They were
nobody
all the way done.
nobody wants your dirty ass shoes. Come on, man.
With holes at the bottom. Yeah.
All right. Well, enough of that here. I made it through the whole podcast without cussing, and then I say the A word at the end. But, we were talking sports. So thank you so much for being a guest. where can our listeners or viewers, find out more about you? Tell us about your law firm, your social media accounts. Where can we learn more about you?
Yeah, no, of course. And primarily, it's going to be on Instagram. It's just going to be David on Law. That's ON Law. That's the platform that I post the most. Also, they can find me on KZY50 TV. That's open air television or online. I'm also there on the news with segments and infomercials as well, and that's throughout the year. But also, for a law firm, it's Bakersfield Law Firm. We're in the Bakersfield neighborhood, right next to Balboa Park. The firm's been around for 30 years. The principal attorney is Maxwell Aga. He's been a great mentor to me, a great supporter of me through law school. And we primarily focus on personal injury, limit law, and workers' comp. So I found that these three areas actually have a lot of crossovers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, just, go on Instagram. You always need more followers on these social media platforms. So make sure to follow me at David on Law on Instagram.
David on Law. Okay, man, we'll do it. I already follow you, but all the rest of you need to follow him right now. He's always posting cool, good stuff. And so thank you so much for being a guest. I know that our listeners and viewers will enjoy your story and what you shared with us today. This concludes this episode of the Latino, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities. Please, if you like what you hear or see, please subscribe and share. Until next time, this is your host, John Gomez, signing off.
Thank you for listening to the Latino podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.